For me, the story first has to work. It has to be something that I feel I want to be part of. Santosh is a wonderful person also to work with. I mean, we had a lot of fun. And I think, shot more in Kerala than I've probably shot in Bombay. Usually, the women audience was more than 50% or at least 50%. But here in Kerala, somehow there were more men. And no marks for guessing why.
ടൊറന്റോ ബുസാൻ ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ ഫിലിം ഫെസ്റ്റിവലിന് ശേഷം നന്ദിതാദാസ് സംവിധാനം ചെയ്ത സുഗാറ്റോ കേരള രാജ്യാന്തര ചലച്ചിത്രമേളയിൽ ഇന്ത്യൻ പ്രീമിയറിന് ഒരുങ്ങിയിരിക്കുന്നു. ക്യൂ സ്റ്റുഡിയോയിൽ ഇന്ന് നമ്മുടെ കൂടെ ഉള്ളത് നന്ദിതാദാസ്. വെൽക്കം മാം.
Thank you.
സോ നൗ യുവർ ഫസ്റ്റ് ഐ.എഫ് എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് വാസ് 26 years back during the screening of the movie Fire. I just want to know what, if you have any memories about attending IFFK for the first time back then.
Yeah, well, it was a big hall. I remember it must have been the Tagore Hall. And what actually surprised me, because we had gone to a few festivals before that. Fire was shown in Toronto. After that, it was shown in some place in Paris, London, all of that. And then we had come for our Indian premiere. Strangely, there were more men in the film, in the hall. You know, because everywhere else, knowing that it's a story about two women, usually the women audience was more than 50% or at least 50%. But here in Kerala, somehow there were more men. And no marks for guessing why. But I think now when I see, because I've been coming to Kerala since then many times. I've come here many times as an actor. I've come here as a director. Both my directorial films, Firak and Manto, were shown here. So I think the number of people this year has really, I think, grown a lot. I was told some 13,000 registrations were there. So that's quite phenomenal, I think. And also the curation, it's a wide variety of films, many sections. So it's now it must be just on autopilot, because you know, a system has been put in place, and it's definitely the best festival in the country.
You had put up a note yesterday telling that IFFK is the most vibrant and most inclusive film festival that you have ever been.
Because you know, you see people of different regions, you see transgenders, and you know, there is a kind of a freedom with which, and the conversations, there's more freedom of speech also. I feel like everybody was voicing their opinions much more freely than you get to do in the rest of the country.
Connecting with the movie Fire, that was released in 1996, its filmmaker Deepa Mehta had told that at that time she haven't got that thought that you were making a film about lesbian relationship. The only thought that occurred to her was that you were making a film about patriarchy and how it reflects women's sexuality.
Right.
So at this point of time, do you believe that Fire was one such film that initiated this whole conversation, whole discussion regarding this white topic?
I think so. I think Fire in that sense is a landmark film, because that triggered many conversations. Whether people liked the film or hated it or whatever happened, they could not ignore it. Suddenly this subject, at that time there was no LGBTQ, these vocabulary also was not, we were not using that. It was only homosexuality versus heterosexuality, you know. It was just a very broad kind of term. But it definitely triggered a lot of conversation. Suddenly it was out in the public space, people were talking about it. They suddenly had a vocabulary to at least express these views. You know, it also, the Delhi High Court, when the 377 was repealed, I think it was a landmark thing, and I want to believe that Fire played that role in bringing it out in the open, something that was shoved under the carpet for so long.
Now, coming to the actor part in you, let's take the case of two films. One is Kannathil Muttamittal by Mani Ratnam, and another is Before the Rains by Santosh.
Right.
Both these films deeply connected with the audience, but above that, they were very much technically brilliant. Film students, they look back upon these works as a reference textbook. So at that time, while committing these works, did you ever have that feeling that you were doing something extraordinary, something special about these films?
Well, I mean, both of them, both Mani Ratnam and Santosh Shivan, are technically, of course, very good, but are good storytellers, you know. And their work I had already admired. So when I got the offer to, even though it was a guest appearance in Mani Ratnam's film, it was a very special role. It was an important role. And it also had as an actor, it had an amazing range. I as an actor don't only see my role. I always get more attracted to the story.
Okay.
You know, like for me, the story first has to work. It has to be something that I feel I want to be part of. Also, maybe because I was never really wanting to be an actor, so I was never seeing that, oh, I have to do a different role, or you know, it was more about the story and wanting to be part of that process and part of that team to be able to tell that story. So both I thoroughly enjoyed. Both are very, very passionate filmmakers. And that time I didn't know, like when you, as an actor, when you work, you don't know what's going to be the outcome. You don't even know whether the experience is going to be good or not. You only hear a story, you meet the director, you see your role, and you jump into that. And I think actors are always perceived to be larger than they really are because you know they are a vehicle to tell the story. But as an actor, you don't know if your best take is going to be in the film, if your best scene is also going to make it to the film. You know, you don't know how the film will come together. Will it be good or bad? How will it be released? You know nothing. So I'm very happy that both the films did really well, and you know, especially Kannathil Muttamittal, everybody sort of here also many people were talking about it. It's one of the films that I really enjoyed, and so and Santosh is a wonderful person also to work with. I mean, we had a lot of fun, and I think shot more in Kerala than I've probably shot in Bombay. So I did 4 Malayalam films, then this Tamil film also. Even Kannathil was shot, parts of it was shot in Kerala. Then I did a Hindi film also that was shot here. So yeah, I've shot quite a lot.
Commercial filmmakers, they have a burden of satisfying a wider audience, but the filmmakers who are making indie films, they tend to communicate the audience with all their soul. The concept is communicated with all their soul. So now at a time when indie films are projecting to the film fraternity audience, do you find that some filmmakers tend to add flavors so that it gets appeal to the film like festival audience? They gets more appeal to the festival audience.
I can't speak for others, but I feel if you're constantly thinking that who is it going to appeal, because you only know yourself, you actually don't know anybody else, right? You don't know, and even the audiences are not one mass of people. You know, you and I might watch the same film and take very different things from that film. So therefore, I feel you have to just be truthful to your story, to your intent, and do it in the best possible way that you can without worrying. You're not. Otherwise, how is it different if you're trying to appease the festival? How is it different from wanting to please the audiences? It's the same thing in a way. You're just trying to please you, and you're trying to imagine this is what the audience will like. Similarly, you're trying to imagine this is what will, you know, the festival will like, or this will what will make it universal. Like, I feel you have to be truthful to your context. That's why they say the more local you are, the more global you are.
More international.
Exactly. So I think you just have to be truthful to that, and then you know you might get into a festival, you may not. That's all part of the journey. You might, the audiences might like, may not like. Some great films have also not worked in commercial settings, or some great films have not got any awards. You know, in fact, I remember there was in Oscars, somebody, the person who was presenting it a few years ago, read out a list of people who have got Oscars, and after that read out a list of great films and great filmmakers who have not got Oscars. So it's not about this, you know, you want to tell a story, and how much of a compulsion it is for you to want to tell that story. And after all, it's a visual medium, it's an audio visual medium. Even if you have the best of intent, if you're not telling it in the best possible way, then it's of no point. It's not only intention that you see in a film. You know, in fact, if you want to reach out, you want to worry about every small aspect of the film, because together it becomes something special.
Coming to the direction side of you, Manto, Firak, and now Zwigato. All these three films had screened at IFFK. On a very personal note, if there is an option to choose one, which would be the most satisfying work that you had?
No, it's difficult to know, right? Because all three are very different. That's the choice I made. I'm not the same person that made, in a way, all three. I am in my core, I am. But you know, I've also changed over the years. The times were also different. All three stories demand a different storytelling style. You know, And I don't like to compare, like, I don't like to compare issues. I don't like to compare this cause is more important than that cause. Depends what is impacting your life.
Just that
Some,
it's
somebody would say
everyone.
human rights is more important. Somebody would say, well, environment is, because there will be no human beings if there's no environment. You know, somebody would say, no, water is more important. Somebody would say child labor is more important to address. So all, I mean, we are not competing. Similarly, I think in films, every story has a certain I mean, there's a certain reason why I'm telling that story. It's obviously impacted me in that particular time. It doesn't mean there are other stories that I don't care about, or there are other stories that are not, you know, worthy of telling. They are. But this is the story that I've come up with right now, and you know, there'll be more stories. So I wouldn't like to compare because all three journeys were different. Manto, of course, was the longest that I worked on, you know, but Zwigato was born out of the pandemic and out of that solitariness, and it was born out of the people who are completely becoming more and more invisible. It's not only about the gig economy, it's also about, you know, just the working class that is just like, for our conveniences, we have people who work to make our life easier, and their stories are not coming out, and you know, and sometimes the stories don't have to be dramatic. They can be very simple, ordinary stories. What is their daily life struggle? What are those small ways in which they are having to compromise and, you know, lose their dignity or self-respect or a sense of self, or, you know, what are the compromises they do in their relationships? Those small things. Vigato is really about those small things, and apart from the gig economy where the focus is, it's also about the context in which it operates, where there are disparities of gender, of religion, of caste, of class. All of this also is part of our larger context. So that also has been touched upon.
Yeah. You had put a statement like economics interfere with so much with art. So now,
It does, unfortunately.
yeah, that's unfortunate. But now coming to the films that are being premiered at different film festivals, if we are looking at those films, very few of them have got its theater run or are available in OTT platforms after their festival run.
Well, it has happened to many of my films as an
Yeah,
actor.
yeah.
And this was before OTT, before social media. It was even tougher to release.
But do you think that such films should be more accessible? Those must be more available in such platforms.
Well, must be, should be. We can make a list of that. Of course, it should be. But the
But
sad
is
thing,
the
there also the economics interferes with
economics
art,
is
right?
a barrier for that.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel that we also have a lot of preconceived notions. We feel, oh, this film won't work. How do we really know? You know, everything is not 2:2. Like sometimes that's why we need, you know, people who are ready to take those challenges, those risks, or have that faith in films. They will say, no, this film may not be a very massy film, or it's not maybe, but in absolute numbers, there are still enough people. After all, we are seeing the most obscure film being watched here by, you know, thousands of people. I mean, people are standing in lines and watching, and there are some films that are, I'm sure, going to be festival favorites. Will all of them find, you know, buyers and a larger audience? Maybe not. So I think we just need more people to have faith in these
But such
kind of
great films, which speaks highly political, which connects with every stratum of the society, those must not only viewed by an intellectually elite class, right?
Absolutely. No, not just intellect. We are assuming festival is only intellectually elite. You go out there, there are a lot of new audiences. I was told by the festival organizers that this year there are a lot of young people who have never come to a festival are coming. You know, and also I think it's the arrogance of our class. We think we don't need to learn anything. It's the, because it's made about a poor person, you know, the poor people should know. Of course, films should reach to everybody, but we also have our prejudices. We are also biased about things. There is lots that we also have to learn and understand and empathize with, or become aware of. So I don't judge any space where films are shown. Festival has its own purpose, and it allows a lot of these indie films to at least be seen. But definitely all of these films, I hope and wish and, you know, want that they get larger platforms to be shown.
So, as a last thing, I would like to ask, you haven't assisted anybody, you haven't gone to any film school, you have even told that you are not a big film watcher.
Yes,
You are
it's true.
constantly
You've done
learning
some
from,
homework, I can see.
yeah, and you are constantly learning by making films.
Yeah, by living.
by living.
Because also when you grow, right, as you live, as you have different experiences, you know, like people give me references of films. Oh, this film is like, have you seen that? I'm like, no. Have you seen that? I'm like just tell me what it's about. You know, I've lived life now. So 50 years of life is a lot of life. So I'm learning every day from life and from people that I meet, and which is not to say that I don't want to watch films, you know, but I love watching in a theater, in that dark room, a collective experience and yet an immersive experience. So watching is fantastic. I'm still not, you know, in watching enough on the laptop, or I don't have a television at home. So, you know, but I do have a projector which I have to get my act together and use it. But I do want to watch more films. But yeah, I'm in that sense a self-taught, you know,
Filmmaker.
stumbling filmmaker, and I was a stumbling actor, and but there are lots of wonderful films being made in Kerala, and I hope that some of these good directors will call me again to do a Malayalam film.
You look upon
There are
filmmakers
many,
from Kerala.
yeah, there are many filmmakers here
New
who are
age
doing
filmmakers.
wonderful, yeah, the new filmmakers telling their stories, and I hope that I will be called for one of them.
Yeah. So happy to have a conversation
Thank
with
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.